Hey everyone, thanks for being here today. So, here's something that might surprise you. Right now, over 42 million Americans depend on SNAP, or what most of us know as food stamps, to put food on the table. And with the government shutdown starting on October 1st, there's a real question people are asking. Will the benefits show up on time, or could they stop altogether? For many families, seniors, and children, even the hint of a delay creates huge stress. And here's the part most people don't know. SNAP is funded in advance, so the benefits don't just stop overnight. But if the shutdown goes on too long, future payments could actually be at risk. That's why this conversation matters, because it's not just about politics, it's about survival. So stick with me, because what I'll share might change how you see the bigger picture and even how you plan for the weeks ahead. Before we keep going, I'd love to hear from you. How would a delay in food assistance affect you or someone you know? Share your thoughts in the comments, because your perspective really matters here. Now, let's break down what's happening. When the government shuts down, it's basically because Congress didn't agree on a budget or at least a temporary extension to keep things running. By law, agencies can't spend money that hasn't been approved. Some services keep going no matter what, like Social Security checks or Medicare, but SNAP sits in a tricky spot. It's not immediately cut off, but depends on carryover funds, timing, and how the USDA moves money around. That's where the stress comes in. So here's how it works in practice. Every month, states send data to EBT card vendors, who load the benefits onto cards. Normally it runs smoothly, but during a shutdown, most USDA staff are furloughed. Right now, more than 90% of staff at the Food Nutrition Service, the group that actually manages SNAP, are not working. Only a little over 100 people are left to run the entire country's food assistance. That means if states stumble or the timing gets messed up, delays are almost guaranteed. And if the shutdown drags on, the funding could dry up completely. What's more, we've seen this before. Back in 2018 and 2019, during the longest shutdown in U.S. history, SNAP benefits were issued early. That left families with a longer than usual gap before the next payment came. Imagine getting your grocery money weeks ahead of schedule, then having to stretch it across a longer gap. Food banks saw spikes, people skipped meals, and trust in the system eroded. We're staring at that same risk again. And it's not just SNAP. WIC, the program for women, infants, and children, is already in trouble. Unlike SNAP, WIC doesn't have funds obligated in advance. States are basically running on leftover money, and some say they'll run out within a week. For millions of new moms, pregnant women, and young children, that means no formula, no nutrition counseling, and no grocery vouchers. So while SNAP has a cushion, WIC is like the canary in the coal mine. If they run out, it shows how fragile these systems really are. Now, you might be wondering, why can't Congress just agree and keep these programs safe? Well, that's the political piece. The Trump administration has been pushing for what it calls fiscal discipline, arguing that government is bloated and needs permanent cuts. Some Republicans are saying this is the only way to force real change. On the other hand, critics argue that using shutdowns to push policy ends up hurting the people who can least afford it: families, seniors, kids who literally need food to get by. So yeah, it's not just about numbers, it's about values. And let's talk about seniors for a minute. AARP has been sounding the alarm, reminding people that older adults who get SNAP average only about $6 a day in benefits. It might not sound like a lot, but for someone living on a fixed income, it could be the difference between having groceries and skipping meals. And earlier this year, SNAP funding was already cut as part of spending bill signed by President Trump. So seniors are already feeling the squeeze, and a prolonged shutdown could make that even worse. Another part of this puzzle is the legal side. The USDA has been using accounting maneuvers to prepay SNAP benefits a month ahead of time. Some watchdogs argue that might not even be legal under existing rules. And if courts rule against it in the future, that could tie USDA's hands. So the very strategy that's protecting people right now might not always be available. That's a big deal, because it means the safety net depends on loopholes rather than rock-solid protections. So then, what does all this mean for families today? For October, benefits are still expected to arrive. That's the good news. But if you're planning ahead, the uncertainty starts in November. If the shutdown drags on past, then families may see late payments, reduced payments, or no payments at all until funding is restored. And for people already living week to week, even the thought of a gap is terrifying. Now, let's zoom in on the human side. Imagine being a single mom with 2 kids, already stretching every dollar. If your benefits are delayed, suddenly you're at the food pantry, hoping they have enough supplies, or maybe you're borrowing from family who don't have much to give. Or think about someone like Margaret, a 72-year-old in Kentucky, who said she can live without cable or a phone, but not without food. That's the reality. These aren't luxuries. They're lifelines. And what I'll show you next might surprise you. Food banks and charities are already gearing up for a surge. Groups like Propel are sending alerts through apps to keep people informed. But here's the issue. Many people who rely on SNAP don't have reliable internet, or they may struggle with digital tools. That creates an information gap. And in times like this, not knowing is almost as hard as not having. And besides the immediate stress, there's the bigger picture. Shutdowns like this make people question whether they can really trust the system. If your benefits are tied up in political fights every year, it chips away at that sense of security. And when trust is gone, people start making choices that aren't always healthy. Skipping meals, buying cheaper but less nutritious food, or going into debt just to cover groceries. Over time, that has real health and financial consequences. So, what can you do if you're worried about your benefits? First, check your state SNAP office website or helpline, because they usually post updates as soon as they know more. Second, food banks and community centers often step up during times like this, so don't hesitate to reach out. And third, budgeting a little tighter now, if you can, might help in case there's a delay later. I know that's easier said than done, but even small adjustments can buy you some peace of mind. And let's not forget, you have a voice. Lawmakers pay attention when their offices get flooded with calls or letters. If this issue affects you or someone close to you, reaching out matters. You might feel like one person can't make a difference, but when millions speak up, that pressure is hard to ignore. Now, before we close out, I want to come back to something important. This shutdown isn't just about politics or numbers on a spreadsheet. It's about whether people can eat. It's about families being able to count on food on the table. And as long as SNAP is vulnerable to these shutdowns, millions of people are left in a constant state of uncertainty. That's not sustainable, and it's not fair. So what does all this mean for you? If you rely on SNAP, your October benefits should be safe, but watch closely for updates. If you don't, this is still something to care about, because food insecurity in your community affects everyone. Schools, healthcare systems, local businesses, they all feel the ripple effects. So, do you think basic programs like SNAP should be shielded from shutdowns entirely, no matter what Congress does? Share in the comments below. And don't forget to subscribe, because I'll be here to keep you updated with calm, clear information that helps you stay prepared. And hey, even though this situation is stressful, remember this, you're not alone. There are resources, there are communities, and there are millions of others who get what you're going through. Staying informed is the first step to staying strong.